And especially I love to watch the ballroom fill in the seats from the back to the front because it makes me feel right at home as if I'm actually in my own high school classroom. So thank you for that this morning. I also, at these types of recognition events that involve so many teachers and educators and administrators, I'd always love to start by going around the room and adding up the years devoted to education in the classroom. Think about that. If we went up and added up the years that we have all collectively spent with students as teachers and educators, and sometimes people laugh at that concept, but in what other profession is experience not considered anything but a positive? So although we don't have that time today to go add up those years, you think about that, all the experience that is sitting right in this room. As I was traveling this past year as national teacher, one of my friends sent me a link to a contest. They said, "Oh, Michelle, look, there was this contest that asked people to sum up what it means to be a great teacher in 6 words." And I thought, wow, that's quite a feat to sum up teaching and education in 6 words. So I went to the website and I looked at all the different entries, and some of them were very colorful and there was a lot of imagery, but then there was one that really made me kind of sit back in my chair, because I think that not only does it apply to teachers, but everybody who works within education. And this was the particular phrase in 6 words that I know describes everybody sitting in this room, classroom, teacher, administration, or otherwise, selflessly dedicated to someone else's success. 6 words, selflessly dedicated to someone else's success. Those words were written by Amanda W. in Nevada, and I don't know her, but I appreciate her. I appreciate those words because I really think that sums up what we all do. And I know that everybody in here, every teacher, every administrator, every principal, everybody has a story about why they chose to come into education in the first place. And I don't think we do nearly enough to share those stories. For me, that story began 20 years and 20 pounds ago. In my very first lab, my very first classroom at the New Jersey School for the Deaf. I have to tell you, I was not encouraged to become a teacher. I always wanted to be a teacher. My mother was a retired elementary school music teacher. I had a great experience in Delaware's public schools, loved my teachers, and I always thought a teacher would be a really great thing to be. And in general, that career goal was received with lukewarm enthusiasm until I decided to enroll at Princeton University. And then the conversation completely changed because, those who can do, and those who can't teach. And my roommate said, "Well, why would you come to Princeton if all you want to be is a teacher?" I mean, what a waste, right? And people ask me how my parents felt about that, spending all that time, all that money, all that education, just to be a teacher in the end. And for a very brief period of time, I got drawn into that mentality, and I thought, I don't know, everybody else is telling me I should be something more than a teacher. Maybe I should. So I decided to take my love for STEM and my love for people, and I decided to be pre-med. And that career goal was very well received. So I was working along through my pre-med program, and I was enjoying it, but I wasn't loving it, and I decided to seek out a volunteer experience. So I went to a volunteer council, and there were all different projects. There was Habitat for Humanity and prison outreach, and then there was a sign that said Marie Katzenbach School for the Deaf. And I saw that word school, and it just clicked with me. I had never met a deaf person. I didn't know any sign language at the time, but I figured I could learn, and I wound up in this lab here. And as you can see from the picture, as always, back then, I was teaching a physics class. It would have been really nice to have some high-tech physics equipment. We know, as teachers and educators, we're not always working with what we need. So as you can see from the picture, we brought out the Hot Wheels cars, and we set up the track, and we're doing experiments with force and motion. And this was back in the day. I love the fact I'm old enough to say back in the day. This was back in the day when film for cameras still came in those little containers. You know what I'm talking about? The black ones with the gray lids. And I would go to places that developed film, and I would say, "Hey, I'm at the School for the Deaf, and we're trying to do some physics experiments, and if you could just donate to me some of those little containers, we could put pennies in them, we can hang them on strings, and we can do pendulum experiments." I mean, we know we're always doing this for our kids. We're always just trying to figure out what works. So that was many, many years ago. And every Tuesday I would go to volunteer at that school, and I would drive away, and my first thought would be, when's it going to be Tuesday again? And then they started asking me to come on Thursday, and then Friday, and then I was going and then I realized I really had no business being a pre-med major, that every day could be Tuesday, and I made the decision to be a teacher, and I've never looked back. And many years later, I find myself here at Urbana High School in Frederick County, Maryland, right in the middle of the state, and I look at this picture, and I see progress. Because this is an AP chemistry class, 10th through 12th grade. And there's roughly an equal mix of male and female students. And that is progress, because that is not always the way it used to be. I know when I grew up through school, I only ever had one female science teacher, and that was in the 6th grade. So we are making progress on the gender gap in STEM. But I look at this picture, and I see some ethnic diversity, but not enough. Because the diversity of my own classroom does not reflect the diversity of my school. And that's a problem. And I'm aware of it. And our work is not finished until we close that gap. And I look at this picture and I see students with 504 plans. I see students with special needs. And there are people who tell me that those students don't belong in my class. And the fact that they're there maybe means that my expectations just aren't high enough. And then I look at the picture and I see at least one face that's missing. And his face is missing because he's a CTE student. He's in our career and technology education program. And somebody said, well, why would a CTE student be in your AP chemistry class? When actually the real question is, why is there only one? So as teachers and educators, we see a lot in our classrooms, in the faces of our students. We see progress, we see challenges, and we see ongoing work. I also had the unique opportunity in the middle of my career to teach for 4 years at the Maryland School for the Deaf. I did learn sign language thanks to the students who taught me, and I am certified in special education. I had the unique opportunity to teach at this school where I taught chemistry and math in sign language. And you know, again, with everything as teachers we believe we're going to teach our students, it still doesn't compare to what we learn from the students. A lot of people ask me about great teaching and what it means to be a great teacher and what works in the classroom, and much of that I learned from these students at this school. And Maryland is a very small state, but it's a very diverse state where we've got the beaches, we've got the inner cities, we've got the mountains, everything in between. This particular school draws students from all over the states, just like in Louisiana. And the most important thing I learned from these students is that it's abilities, not disabilities. Because they didn't see themselves as disabled. They did not see themselves as disabled. They had a language, American Sign Language, and I should probably learn it. So very interesting, the perspectives that we learn from our kids. But then, you know, on May 3rd, 2011, I found myself in a very unlikely place. Yes. Standing with the 55 state and territorial teachers of the year with the president on one side and the secretary of education on the other, knowing that I had about a 3-minute blurb to say something meaningful on behalf of all teachers. It was going to be broadcast online in the entire country. And see, at that moment, I knew that I was no longer an AP chemistry teacher from Maryland with a special interest in deaf students. I was a representative of all teachers. And yes, I thought a lot about how I wanted to use that 3 minutes. And I didn't actually start writing the speech from the very beginning, but there was one sentence that I knew I was going to say on behalf of us all, and this was it. As I had the country's attention, I said, there are millions of teachers in America, and we could all be pursuing different careers. We choose to use our gifts and talents to benefit students in the classroom. It was very important for me to get that sentence out. Thank you. And then, of course, we each teach at our own level, early childhood, elementary, middle, high school. We each have our own niche, our own special interests, but collectively, we're really all doing the same things, and that's something I'm going to talk about in my presentation today. But you know, people look back at this picture and they say, wow, Michelle, they finally got you out of the classroom. You know, what did it feel like to be a celebrity for a year? And I say, I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a celebrity. I'm a representative, and that's different. And they say, no. But what I mean is that you're an exception. You're an exception. I'm not an exception, because there are exceptional teachers in every school, in every district, in every state, and they're invisible. They're invisible. You don't even know who they are, because exceptional teachers are content to work behind the scenes. They're content to pour their time and energy and love and passion into the students. And they quietly go about their business, never seeking or expecting any recognition at all for simply doing what they love to do. That's why you don't know who they are. You don't even know, in many cases, that they exist. I'm not an exception. But as I've traveled this past year, from June 1st, 2011 to June 1st, 2012, I've had the opportunity to meet these exceptional, invisible teachers that are everywhere in our country. And a lot of people want to know, they say, well, where have you been really in the past year? I mean, what have you been doing? Because I have been out of my classroom for the first time in 15 years, and yes, that was very difficult. Because again, I'm one of those invisible teachers, happy to go about my business, working behind the scenes, not expecting recognition for just doing what I love to do. First, I need to say that the map is not to scale. Okay? Before, I know there are social studies and geography teachers, the map is not to scale. I have traveled within the United States and also to 3 countries, Japan, China, and Singapore. But in hot pink, you see the states and the countries where I visited within my term of recognition, from June 1st to June 1st. And in many instances, those were multiple trips, multiple visits to Texas or Georgia, and so on and so forth. You see that Arkansas is shaded in orange. That's because I took a virtual trip to Arkansas. I went to Arkansas via Skype and actually spoke with a group of teachers about this large, and we talked about educational issues and topics and great teaching through the screen. So what a great use of technology. And in yellow, you see the states that I'm visiting this summer, even technically after my term has finished. And there's where you see Louisiana in the yellow, and not only am I here today, but I'm actually coming on Thursday to New Orleans. So twice in 6 days after not being here for an entire year. But as I travel, it's been very interesting to me to hear the questions that I am asked on behalf of us all. Because there's a lot of different issues going on.